Alaska Airlines has teamed up with Hawaiian Airlines to create new nonstop international flights. Go to alaskaair.com or hawaiianairlines.com, and I'll tell you more details later in the show. I'm Rachel Belle, and this is Your Last Meal, the show where celebrities share stories about the foods they love most, and we dig into the history, culture, or science of those meals with experts from around the world. Today on the program, Prabal Gurung, Nepali-American fashion designer and author of the brand new memoir, Walk Like a Girl. The book tells Prabal's life story, how he went from being a bullied queer boy in Nepal who was always an outsider to starting his own label in New York City and designing gowns for First Lady Michelle Obama, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Oprah Winfrey. And on the food front, Prabal is obsessed with momos, steamed Nepali dumplings.
I think the minute I meet someone who says, let's go have a momo on a first date or second date, I'll be like, okay, let's get married.
Prabal tells me why momos are so special, why he pretends to hate Italian food, and which A-list celebrity called him up and asked him to take her out for her very first momo. And from Ralph Lauren and Gucci restaurants to a $4,100 Loewe heirloom tomato leather clutch, food and fashion are colliding like never before. I chat with a few experts about why we are wearing tin sardines on our shirts and paying thousands of dollars for designer cookies. All that coming up later in the show. But first, my conversation with Prabal Gurung. I just have to tell you, your book is exceptional. I have been interviewing people for over 20 years. I've read a lot of memoirs, and you are such a beautiful writer. I couldn't put it down. So congratulations. It's an amazing book.
Oh my God, what a way are you going to make me emotional? I mean, we haven't even said hello. Thank you so much. I mean, that's really generous of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm literally tearing up. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
Let's talk about the title of the book. Just 4 words that really defined a lot of your childhood. Can you talk about what Walk Like a Girl means to you?
Walk like a girl was a term that was thrown at me to make sure that I felt less than, to really belittle me, to make sure that my existence didn't matter. Initially, I didn't understand why it was an insult because I was surrounded by women, my mother, my sister, and everything. But the tone, the way it was said, I understood that it was supposed to be an insult. I mean, in Nepali, it's even more harsh, the way they would say it. And, I was an effeminate kid, there was no doubt, and I walked like a girl, and there was no shame to it. And I remember early on when I was, very young, I told my mother, I'm never going to be part of this group. I'm never going to belong. And so I'm just going to do things my way because nobody's going to care anyway, whatever I do. Mommy, I know my worth. The world just needs to catch up to it. That's what she reminds me all the time that I used to say that, ever since I was a kid. And then to me, Walk Like a Girl is things that are hurled at you as an insult, like how you can turn it around and make it your mantra and your power and really change the course of your life and hopefully along the way change someone else's. And so that's how it started. And then, I came to my career, and it was like models walking down the runway, celebrities walking down the red carpet and everything. And my career and who I am has solely been possible because of all the women, whether it's from my mother and my sister to whether, fashion industry supporters, whether it's Anna Wintour, like Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, all these actresses wearing it. So it is not just a celebration about female as a gender, but the idea, matriarchy as an idea that affects all of us, male or female, or anyone else, So that's how it started. Long-winded answer, but yeah.
All right, we're going to take a sharp turn and talk about momos.
Yes, my favorite topic ever.
Yes. After the break, let the momo commotion begin. The only thing better than eating momos is saying the word momos. And we're going to do a lot of the latter after this break. All right. right, we're going to take a sharp turn and talk about momos.
Yes, my favorite topic ever.
Yes. So for people who don't know, it is a dumpling from Nepal.
Yes,
You have a
yes.
love affair with the momo. Just first, for people who don't know, can you kind of describe it?
Okay, let me have this conversation about momo without my mouth watering. I mean, I can't. I love momo more than life sometimes. So basically, like it's a good dough, like momo, like dumpling wrappers. And then inside of it is minced meat. Now, no momo are alike. Each and every momo are different. It depends on the spices that you put. It's according to like the household you grow up in. Some people like garlic, some people like ginger, some people like this like pepper. Like I also feel like the way you mix the meat, the way it's minced. My mother often tells me like the most important thing is it made with love? And so it also depends on how much fat is in there. And once you steam it, depending on the fat that's in there and the spices that's in there, oh my God, my mouth's watering, sorry. Okay.
Me too.
Okay, so it is so juicy and it's so good. Back home in Nepal, every household, every person makes it differently. Some people add peanuts to it, some people add other spices. So in my household, what we do is pick a certain kind of tomatoes. That doesn't have too much water. And then they skewer it on the wood-burning coal. Okay, and so it has this smoked charred tomatoes and then smoked red dried chilies and all these other spices that my mom adds to it. And it's not ground in a, how do you say, in a, like a
Like a food
mixer.
processor?
Yeah, a food processor. It's not. We have this like a big stone, is it called pestle and mortar or something like that?
Yeah.
But giant. So there's a difference in that. So it's all like hand done. Like, it's very much like a labor of love and it tastes different. When it's put in a food processor versus the stone pestle and mortar, it is completely different. I mean, I could eat up to, I would say, easily 20 to 30 in one go. All my friends know this. Yeah, all my friends know this. Yeah, so
You said that you will eat momo when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're in love, when you're not in love, but never on a date. Why is that?
because I haven't met anyone, to be completely honest, when I've gone out on a date who said, hey, let's go for a momo. I think the minute I meet someone who says, let's go have a momo on a first date or second date, I'll be like, okay, let's get married.
Yeah, you'll just like shove a hole right through that momo and stick it on their finger immediately.
Yeah, there will be a ring there in one of the momos, so it's like, yes, there are dim sums and dumplings and everything, which I love also, but momo, it tells a lot of stories. You make it with your family or your friends together. And we make it we don't buy wrappers. You take the flour, you put the, salt and water and you knead it, you let it sit, you let it rest, all this stuff, The whole process is such a community-driven, family-driven, and you share stories while making momos. Like I was growing up, I would hear my aunts and all, they would talking about, oh my God, did you hear that so-and-so is getting married or so-and-so is getting divorced? They're very gossipy, but really...
Totally.
And I think that's where my first exposure to storytelling happened was this incredible stories that women would share with each other. And just like me watching and listening to them, I was fascinated, like, my God. And then they would be able to make momos, take care of their kids, answer phones, multitasking. It almost felt like a beautifully choreographed dance routine. Yeah, momos has like a lot of those memories attached to it. A lot of personal heartbreaks attached to momos, and where I'm like, oh my God, I feel so horrible. I just got dumped, and and I'm like, oh, let me just go have a momo. And I live in Manhattan, and I go all the way to Jackson Heights by myself. I'll take a train or something like that, and then read a book and go to this restaurant and just eat 2 plates of momos and come back home, and I feel better.
Salt them with your tears.
Yes, it absolutely. Sometimes all else fails. Momo is always there for you.
I want to talk about Italian food because this was very funny to me. I love
going to get me in trouble, but
I can relate to this. There's a little bit of spitefulness around this. Yeah, so when you first came to the States, you didn't like Italian food publicly. Tell me why.
Okay. Should I be very candid, or I'm just okay? I don't want to get in trouble. That's why. Okay, with my
you just
friends.
Wrote a very personal memoir. All you can be is candid now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So when I came to America, I liked every kind of food. I still do. But every time somebody would eat Indian food or Korean food with a kimchi, people would always be like, what's that smell? And I always say it's not smell, it's a fragrance, you know?
Yes.
It always bothered me. Like, you live in New York City and going out on dates is a lot easier than being in a relationship. Let's just put it that way. So, you go out on a couple of dates and it would never be adventurous. Let's try something, like Korean food or Indian food or anything spicy or anything that had like this different kind of fragrance and flavor. And I would go on dates and these guys would be like, or some of my friends would be like, oh, it really smells. It's like stays in your skin and everything. And they would quote about like going to this fancy restaurant or being cultured and seeing this play and everything. And I'm like, you read this book, you go to this play, you watch this thing, yet you're not open about all these other experiences and they would say, so what's your favorite cuisine? I say, I like everything else except Italian food. That's what I started saying, It was not true, but I was just being snarky.
You were on strike.
Yeah, I was. It was my own small resistance being like, well, if you want to still go out on a date with me, then we'll have to try Indian food or some other food, Ethiopian food. Like I remember going out on a date and I wanted to try an Ethiopian food. And this guy was like, oh my God, what does it taste like? And I said, let's try it.
Be curious.
Yeah, so it became a thing. So now all my friends say, oh, Prabal doesn't like Italian food. I'm like, I don't say anything, but I go on my own. I go to San Ambrose all the time, like with an RB. So anything with tomato base, I love it, right? So it's like my secret thing. My close friends know that I like it and I am doing it for that. But it was just that, like honestly, I would be in my office and there'd be, some of my Indian interns or Korean interns, they'd bring their food and, people would be like, ew, what's that smell? And I'm just like, stop with the ew, first of all. It's food. It's very offensive,
Yes.
Instead of saying like, don't do that, I was just like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to start my own, protest. I don't know how successful it was. I'm still single, so clearly not. But, yeah.
I am on the same page with you. That is one of my biggest pet peeves is people saying ew about something you're eating. Because who wants to be told that what they're doing, eating, wearing, believe in is gross? But also, I think it's so boring.
The person that I've met once I became a fashion designer who's been really curious and who tried it out was Sarah Jessica Parker. When she met me and everything, she was like, I've never had Nepali food. What does it taste like? Because I dressed her several times and she was like, where can you find it? And I said, it's in Queens. And said, I'd like to go. And I was like, yeah, sure. That's what I said. She was like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, okay, but it's in Queens. It's in Jackson Heights. and then she's like, yeah, sure. And she's like, I'm going to take your number and I'm going to call you and we'll go. And I was like, sure. Like, yeah, absolutely. Thinking why would anyone?
It's never going to happen.
Yeah, because none of my friends are interested or intrigued by it. Friends who've been, I've been friends with for more than 15 years, they've ever asked me that. And so all of a sudden, in 3 days, I get a phone call and it is her. And I pick an hello and she's like, hey, are you free on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday? And I was like, in my head, even if I'm not, I'll be, So I was like, sure. And then she's like, so I want to go to a Nepali restaurant in Queens. I'm going to get a car. I'm going to pick you up and let's go. And I'm like, is she serious? Okay, and then I'm like panicking. I'm like, oh my God, does she need something fancy? In my head. But then I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to take her to a place that I love. So we went there and I picked her up. And on the way, we had an amazing conversation and she loved it, The first time that we really sat down and really talked. She has worn my stuff and several times. She's a big supporter, and we've never had a chance to really sit down and have a conversation. And anyway, so we're sitting there at the restaurant, and we're like eating, and there's a bunch of these girls, Nepali girls come, and they're like, "Oh my God, are you Prabal Gurung?" And then I was like, "Yes," and hi, and then they say, "Do you mind if we take a picture with you?" And I was like, "Sure." And then they hand over the phone to Sarah Jessica Parker, and they're like, "Do you mind taking our picture?" And I look at her, I'm just like a mouthing. I'm like, "Oh my God, I am so sorry."
I bet she loved it.
So she takes a picture and the girls, they look at the picture. "Thank you so much." Literally less than 2 minutes, the girls come like, "Oh my God, you are Sarah Jessica Parker." I was just like, never and it's just like, it was one of those, I would say, it's still one of my favorite memories about New York and someone who's had never explored my community or my food and everything, and someone of her caliber and someone of her, that famous and that's celebrated, and she was so curious, and so that's what I say. And I look at her and she's a true New Yorker. That's what New Yorkers are. True New Yorkers are like that, So yeah.
Well, as a decades-long Sex and the City fanatic, this story couldn't make me happier because, you just want to hear that these people are who you want them to be. So that's awesome.
And they are, and she is. above and beyond. I cannot even tell you. Someone with integrity. Oftentimes what happens in my profession is, you meet people, you dress them, everything, you become, it's just everyone gets busy and everyone gets busy with their own lives. It is transactional. With her, it has surpassed everything. Her loyalty, her friendship. I could go on and on and on about Sarah Jessica Parker, how thoughtful she is.
I think I know what the answer is. What would your last meal be?
Obviously momo.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say anything that my mom makes. My mother is a phenomenal cook. And I'm just not saying as as a son, but anyone who's eaten her food. Even when my, parents they were separated and everything, every time I would see my father, for lunch or something like that, he wouldn't have many, let's say, nice things to say about my mother, but one thing that he always said was, I've never met anyone who can cook like her.
Can you be specific if you were going to have this one meal on a plate?
Oh my God. Okay. All right. I'm such a mama's boy, so I'm going to follow her instructions every day. On a copper plate, that's what she says. Apparently, when you eat out of copper, it's really good for you. On a copper plate, there's going to be 6 pieces of momos, achar there, mutton that my mom really cooks it hours and hours, black lentils, green spinach sauteed with dry red chilies, garlic and ginger. Then bamboo shoots with kidney beans, this steamed rice, and this clarified, we call it ghee. It's a clarified butter. And actually chura, which is like a beaten rice. And then one more vegetable, as my mom keeps on insisting. So more vegetables. So that's what it would be. Finishing off with this tea that we make, chia we call it, which is like chai. Finishing off with that. The tea that we make in Nepal is less out of a packaged spices. It's more ground. We grow our own, let's say, spices. And it's usually fresh off the trees and the plants or dried. And so, especially in my mother's place, she doesn't use anything from the plastic or in a box. So even now here in New York, when I make tea on a pestle and mortar, cloves, what do you call it? Cinnamon, all the other spices that my mom has made. So I grind it. I just press down some ginger and put it in there, let it steep, and then add those. So that's how I still make it.
For his last meal, Prabal wants a mama's boy meal. 6 momos, mutton, black lentils, lots of vegetable dishes, and tea, all made by his Nepalese mother. When we come back, why did we go from bacon and cupcake print dresses to asparagus purses and tomato girl summer? We will discuss the psychology behind food and fashion. One of my favorite episodes of Your Last Meal was with fashion designer Betsy Johnson. It was back in 2020. My producer Laura Scott and I were brainstorming food and fashion angles. And she suggested we get Lady Gaga on the show to talk about the infamous meat dress she wore to the MTV VMAs in 2010. I love the idea, but I told her we will never get Gaga. But let me try and track down the person who made her meat dress. And we did. We got designer Frank Fernandez on the show, and he told me that when he was conceptualizing the dress, he made a call to Argentina, a country known for its beef.
I went to my family butcher, which cut would be the best to sew through. It's oh, then you want skirt steak, funny enough.
So in honor of having another designer on the show, I thought it would be fun to revisit the topic of food and fashion. Food has been intertwined with fashion for centuries, probably thousands of years, but it seems to be exploding right now. Over the weekend, I popped into Anthropology, and there was fruit on everything. Cherry tops, lemon pants, strawberry dresses, tomato shorts. I tried those on. I didn't buy them. Designer Rachel Antonoff is famous for her line of food-themed apparel, like her bow tie pasta puffer and the bagel sweater that I couldn't resist buying. Outlets like CNN and Marie Claire are publishing articles with titles like, "Is food fashion's newest status symbol?" Kate Spade collaborated with Heinz to make a ketchup packet purse that is currently sold out, but for sale on eBay for nearly $1,000. Designer Chopova Lowena teamed up with Hellmann's mayonnaise to make a purse with an actual jar of Hellmann's mayo strapped to the front alongside a fancy mayo scooping spoon. This mayonnaise purse is retailing for $2,300. And Supreme did a limited edition collab with Oreo, red velvet Oreos with Supreme embossed on each cookie. This was a limited release, and a pack of 3 cookies cost $8 retail, but they instantly sold out, and people were bidding up to $91,000 to snag 3 of these designer cookies on eBay.
So food and fashion are both necessities, food and clothing. We have to eat, we have to get dressed. But they're also ways that we express our identity. We could subsist on bread and water and cover ourselves in just plain sheets of fabric, but we don't. It's a way that we express ourselves and elevate and distinguish ourselves both in class and culture and gender and a lot of other kind of identity points.
That's Dr. Liz Way, a curator at FIT in New York City and co-author of the book Food and Fashion, which was translated into a big exhibition at the museum at FIT. Both the book and the exhibition explore the marriage of food and fashion over the past few centuries.
So we start in the 18th century in the book, but honestly, we could go into antiquity and before. Food is such a symbolic and important part of people's lives. So we can look at ancient textiles that are embroidered with pomegranates or other kind of fruits and vegetables, grain, wheat. So they really goes as far back as I think textile objects have existed.
Food and fashion, both their raw materials that come from the earth. And so they have this really long-standing connection and partnership that goes way back. We are what we eat. We are what we wear.
That's Liz's co-author, FIT curator Melissa Mara Alvarez. Melissa says brands are using food to evoke emotions that will hopefully encourage you to buy the product.
Maybe when you see an image of cherries, you think sweet and summer and happiness. This was something we explored in the exhibition, the concept of pastries and desserts and ice creams. A lot of us just have positive connotations from our childhood.
And we saw designers do this a lot in ways to evoke their cultural heritage as well. We had, for example, a bag that was made out of a Takis chip bag. And I think there's a lot of nostalgia. Issey created a capsule collection of accessories that was rolled into the shape of a bento box. All the little accessories were rolled up like sushi. And so that is a really strong association with Japan and his cultural heritage. But I think also invokes kind of a more general sense of cultural identifiers.
Can relate. I bought my bagel sweater because bagels feel like a part of my identity. My grandpa was a Bialy baker in Brooklyn. Half my family are Jewish New Yorkers. And I've always lived on the West Coast where that culture just isn't as prominent. So I've realized over the years that I feel this pull to be loud and proud about that part of myself. And a bagel is the perfect symbolism to do that.
I'm 31. So when I was in high school, it was the peak bacon and cupcake dress era.
That is Elizabeth Goodspeed. She wrote a very well-researched food and fashion piece called We're Desiring Food Instead of Eating It.
And now we've definitely gone more towards sort of luxe farmers market.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, you can always blame Ozempic. People love to talk about Ozempic in this context. I do think some of it is that food has gotten much more expensive, nourishing food, that it has become more of a luxury. Eggs are $12 now. And having heirloom tomatoes, it speaks to sort of having the disposable income and the disposable time to go get these kind of foods. Whereas I think the version of it in 2012 was much more focused on this sort of indie sleaze hyperindulgence. It was the skinny girl eating a hamburger. The not caring was the posturing. And I think now the caring is the posturing.
Indie sleaze hyperindulgence is such a perfect way to talk about the bacon trend.
I think there's a simplistic indulgence to food in these spaces, very dopamine inducing. It's a very easy win. It's something everybody understands. It just feels fun. It feels good. They don't have to worry about offending anybody. They don't have to worry about creating these complex narratives. It's something that is immediately understood no matter what.
A lot of big fashion houses have also gotten into the restaurant business.
Ralph
Gosh.
Lauren has a couple in New York, and I think maybe in some other cities as well. Missoni has their cookbook.
Dior has a restaurant or a cafe. Louis Vuitton has a restaurant. Prada has a cafe. In New York, Tiffany's has their Blue Room restaurant. I mean, and then there's like Armani who has chocolates, which has been around for a long time.
Branded cafes and restaurants kind of allow brands to extend their ecosystems beyond retail to create experiences that offer access to a brand at a more attainable price point. Someone buying, a Gucci coin purse, when a handbag feels out of reach, a $14 latte stamp with the designer monogram kind of offers a smaller way to participate, and also arguably one that's easier to post on your Instagram story. The architecture, the table settings, all that is kind of engineered to be photographed. The consumption becomes part of the experience. I won't be shocked to see more of those. Everyone's trying to shift from being a brand to being a world. And I think this is like a huge part of that.
Food and fashion have always had a complicated relationship, and, stereotypes that probably were true, at least in the 80s or 90s, with the rail thin models and the idea that models don't eat and people in fashion don't eat.
I think there's something to be said about who can afford and get away with wearing those kind of things. And I would say as someone who's a size 12, 14, I don't feel if I wore a dress with cupcakes, it would be received the same way as a size 0 wearing a dress with cupcakes. I'm thinking about like the 2003 Carl's Jr. ads with models eating burgers. I think we're sort of back to this like visual indulgence, but that the bodies that are promoting these fantasies are kind of increasingly defined by their distance from actual consumption, which makes it more thorny.
Let's check back in with Prabal. Food and fashion is kind of an interesting mix. I feel like in, years recently, maybe it's loosened up a little bit. People don't usually think about fashion and models and food, but there was an article in Vogue in 2020, and it said, while some Fashion Week parties are not enjoyed season after season, Gurung's parties are routinely rowdy affairs. And it was talking about how you brought all of these celebrities together. You were having these chic dinner parties with family-style food. And you were quoted as saying, "This is what a dinner table should look like." For you, as someone who loves food, have you tried to bring that into the fashion world? Is it hard to bring that into the fashion world?
No, on the contrary, actually, all of us in fashion industry, we eat a lot, believe it or not, we eat. And at least I eat. All my friends, we do. Okay, let's just put it this way. Fashion for the longest period of time has looked a certain way, certain demographic, certain body type, certain race, certain gender. It's very much that. And so instead of saying, oh, you guys are not being inclusive, I was like, let me just show another alternative, a colorful dinner table, food, people, conversation, and see what can also be a possibility. My approach in life has always been less complaining, more doing, and showing what could be a possibility. My dinner parties, my joyous celebration of like food and rowdy and all, like it is boisterous. It's simply because I always feel like people change when there's levity, when there is love, when there's grace, when people feel included. The absolute truth about our lives is its impermanence. We all have to go. And I want to make sure that what I leave behind has changed at least one life. And also when I'm present and people who are surrounded with me and by me and are with me, that we feel that we are fully present in everyday life. And I think when you feel, that's why my shows are oftentimes really emotional, the music that I use. People always say, when they walk out of the show, they remember the music, they felt certain, people cry, And I always say, people may not remember a certain clothes or the collection, but they remember how they felt. So that's what it is with the dinners and all this celebration as well.
And that was Prabal Gurung's last meal. Prabal's new memoir, Walk Like a Girl, is out now. Pick it up wherever books are sold. Thanks to Elizabeth Goodspeed, Dr. Liz Way, and Melissa Mara Alvarez. Your Last Meal is a product of Seattle's Cascade PBS. Go to cascadepbs.org to become a member and get on-demand access to all PBS programming. Right now happens to be a really important time to support your local PBS station. This episode was produced and edited with Maliha Syed and Sarah Bernard. Sarah also did the mixing and mastering. Original theme music by Prom Queen. Your Last Meal was created, hosted, and co-produced by me. I'm Rachel Belle, and this is Your Last Meal.
I forget that this is for audio and I should not interrupt you. This is
That's okay.
I also found out recently that I'm half Jewish and that there's a concept in Jewish conversation called cooperative overlapping.
Oh, we interrupt. I'm Jewish too.
Yeah. But I love that phrase, cooperative overlapping. I was like, oh, that's exactly what I'm going to call it from now on. It's not interrupting, it's cooperative overlapping.